Hey, welcome to Putting the Real in Real Estate with Ruth Sheehan.
And Danielle Tully.
Today we are busting some myths, and some of them have been around for a long time. Some are brand new myths. Like Danielle, let's start with: is this a bubble? And is the market about to crash?
Okay, so we've talked about this in the past as far as when we start to see recessions, that of the last five that we have had, there was only two that had a downturn in value. And of course, it's the last one we're all aware of, the one that everybody keeps hanging their hat on, the one that everybody keeps, insisting is, we're being revisited with. And that did have quite a downturn in prices.
Also, let's mention the media has called 10 of the last 5 recessions. So
yes, exactly. And we're due for one. And I'm not saying we're not getting in one, but a recession is different than is the housing going to crash. And so I just want to throw some statistics out there because that's what I do. And to kind of reassure you for where we are right now as a recession may be happening, and where we were back in 2007 when we started the beginning of the crash. So in 2007, there were 3.81 million houses for sale. That was March 2007, 3.8. In March of 2012, which is where we were kind of seeing things start to
pretty much the bottom, yeah,
bottom out and start kind of going back up. There were 2.3 million houses, so $1 million or 1 million houses were absorbed, and we were seeing, kind of the supply and demands kind of even out a little bit. In March of 2017, which is kind of when we were saying we're back. We are back. 1.8 million houses for sale. So that is half of the inventory there. In March of 2022, 950,000. So less than half of the houses that were available in 2017 for sale are available now.
And 2017 was a tight inventory market.
And it's just getting worse and worse. And so when we, supply and demand, that is economics 101. And what we're trying to say is that even if we start seeing people back off of the buying, there is still demand there. And we are not we're not going to see a sudden nobody. Do you think 1 million people, out of all of them are going to be, moving? And so
there's plenty to add if you are wanting to take advantage of the greatest seller's market that's ever existed. There is still room to add, quite a bit of room to add to that inventory.
Absolutely.
We have 2 listings that just went live. I think within an hour we had, 5, 10 showings scheduled like immediately. So there's still, lots of room to add to the supply. So another myth, we want to bust some what we're calling budget math myths. So I don't know if anybody who watches us watches HGTV, but if you do,
everybody does.
You'll see this weird thing that happens that we all shake our heads at and say that's not how it works. And that is, the butterfly collector and the manufacturer of straws who live in their parents' basements, who get a budget of $800,000. So they go looking for a $500,000 house, and then they're going to do $300,000 in renovations. That's not how it works. The bank typically does not lend you. There are specific loan products that are rehab loans that are different. But when you get a pre-approval for $500,000, that will buy you a $500,000 house, not a $400,000 house plus $100,000 to do whatever you want with.
Right. And I mean, we're not saying that you have to go top of the budget. If you want to buy a $400,000 house, that's absolutely fine.
But you're going to be using your own cash to do that.
Absolutely. or get an additional
getting some
financial.
sort of personal loan.
Correct.
Or your
Correct.
credit cards, but the bank's not giving you $500,000 just because that's what you qualify for.
Absolutely. And the way that, and quite honestly, just as a side note, there are, if somebody is currently thinking about doing any type of renovations to the house, if they've bought in the last few years, or even if it's been quite a long time, they might have the equity to do an equity line of credit for it. But they don't hand you the keys and a check for $100,000 to renovate the house.
And again, there are specific loan products, 203K FHA loans, but those are not easy. They don't just give you a check.
Nope.
The process is complicated and difficult, and there's lots and lots and lots of oversight.
And you will not get it accepted in today's market unless it's a house that has been sitting or is a difficult sell. But if it's just
even
because
those are just going to be cash investors, so
well, absolutely, but if you're just talking about you don't like the kitchen and so you'd like to get a 501 or 503, 203, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going with non-for-profits right now. I deal with too many of those in my volunteer work. 203 loans, that's just because you want a new kitchen is just not going to happen right now. Not going to happen. So those are the kind of first couple. Another one. So this goes with the interest rates, right? So there has decidedly been a huge jump in interest rates. Still very affordable comparatively, but it is hurt some people's purchasing power. But what some people think is, kind of back to that having extra cash on hand, that if you put $100,000 down on a house, or if you put $100,000 or whatever random number towards the house, that if you had a $400,000 budget, suddenly you'll have a $500,000 budget. And that's not, there's different numbers that go into figuring out how much you can get for a loan. And
don't try to do the math on what you qualify for yourself. It just doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. Yes.
Lenders
so, you
math.
absolutely can put that towards like a down payment. And you can, stop some things like PMI, depending on what type of loan you're going for. Usually if you put that much money down, but even if it's a smaller amount, that doesn't just go on top of, your loan. They take in a lot of things into consideration, and having that extra cash, you also don't want to be house poor.
Right.
You don't want to take all your cash and put it towards a house, if you can help it. You definitely want to have a contingency plan for if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then I feel like a broken record with these interest rates, because I keep saying like, don't get worried. And yes, it's disappointing. But, we've been hearing people talk about, especially first-time home buyers who do not have anything to sell. So yeah, I mean, it's nice if you're selling something, you have a chunk of equity you may be getting from your house to put towards another house. And maybe that'll help you make a decision a little faster with these interest rates. But if you're renting and you don't have your own place, as far as I see it, and Ruth, I don't know if you see it the way, because that's, again, my financial brain, it's 100%. Your interest rate on renting something that is not yours is 100% interest.
Yeah. And it, you have to be, so we've got a couple of clients who are renting temporarily while they find what they're looking to buy. That makes sense. Don't jump and buy something that isn't the right property. Don't get into something that, you're going to be either over your head with, or you're going to want to move in 2 years. But we also have people who say, well, maybe we'll just rent for another year. Maybe we'll just wait and see what happens. waiting to see what happens is not likely. And again, our caveat of we never know for sure what's going to happen. But waiting to see what happens is most likely going to result in higher interest rates and a big hole in the floor where you throw money until that happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So renting is not keeping you from getting, into a market you don't want to be in. Renting is just taking your money and not giving you anything in return.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is the way, I know that home buying is not for everybody, and that is perfectly fine. But if you're minded and if it's in your future plans and everything else is the same and you're just holding out because you're afraid or you don't know what's going to happen next, and then, you have situations where it's a great market out here. Too many people I know have been renting and in houses that the owners had only because their houses were devalued for so long. And now the new rents are so high because again, supply and demand. If these houses that were once rentals or have been rentals for the last 10 years, and so nobody had, there's been it seems to me a lot of towns push back on any type of new housing that are rentals. And they're, and when they do, it's, 100 or 200, and then that's it. And then you won't see another complex in that town for a decade or two.
Yeah.
That's not helping that industry. So the supply and demand with the rentals are very low. So when you have somebody who bought a house, again, 200,000, it was down to 70,000 at some point and they needed to go, but wanted a rental, or they just bought it low, and decided, hey, this thing is now worth 200. It's worth 250. It's worth 300. Sell. The 1,500 I get a month is not worth it, or the 2,000 I get is not worth it.
Right. And a lot of them didn't intend to be landlords to begin with.
Correct.
So, so they're taking the opportunity to get out of that.
Absolutely. And then let's see. Sorry, my phone with my notes just closed up. Okay. And so the last thing we just want to say that, again, with this interest rate talk, there's so much interest rate talk, is that nobody's expecting it to go down anytime. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't whoops, we're sorry, we didn't know what was happening. It just went up. Interest rates are
We've been talking about going up for a long time, and the only thing that kept it down was COVID.
Yes, that is 100%
this is
true.
Long overdue, these raises.
Yes. So we have seen a substantial, since December of 2021. Gosh, I knew the stats. I said them to you the other day. Was it 2 full points that's gone up since?
Just about, yeah.
It's 2 full points that have gone up in the last 4 months. So from the end of December to the beginning of the end of April, it's just about 2 points fully raised, which is unfortunate because people's buying power are going down. But what happens if they go up to 7 or 8 or 9? That buying power has halved almost in some cases, depending on your price point. I think that there's a really good thing that can happen is you can refinance if you end up paying if interest rates do start, if we're wrong,
I'm waiting for rates to go down. Know that they're probably not going to, but if they do, then that's your opportunity to refinance once you have a mortgage.
Yes.
You don't need to wait until they're low, because first of all, probably not happening. Secondly, you can do that later.
Absolutely. And again, waiting for interest rates to drop, that's when people who already have bought are going, maybe it's time for us to go. Or all these people who waited go. So guess what? That supply and demand goes up again. That supply goes down again. Demand goes up, and prices raise again. So really, that 1% difference you were waiting for, or 2%, or whatever that magic number is that you have in your head that you're waiting for it to go down, how much is the house going to go up? 10%?
Yeah.
20, 30?
Yeah.
We don't know. 5? It's definitely, if you count total output, it might not make sense. It likely doesn't make sense. But we are happy to talk to anybody. We're not saying everybody needs to move. Not everybody needs to purchase. But if it's something that you're thinking about,
again, as we hammer all the time, if you need to be living someplace else.
Yes.
We're not talking about a market move. We're not talking about a portfolio move. We're talking about your home. If your home is not serving you and you need to live someplace else, that can happen. We can make that happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we bring out these numbers. We tell you the overall ideas behind what our market is and what's going on. But if you have concerns, let us know. We can put you in the right hands, because our lenders are the ones who really go, deep with what you can afford and what's the right, what your payments can look like, what your down payments, changing those up, how that would affect you and all that good stuff. But we just want to, keep you aware that there are choices out there, and, your knee-jerk sense of how things work might not be right. Sometimes it makes sense. It does make sense. Oh, who wants to pay this much?
Yeah,
my current mortgage is low, but if things have changed,
look at who's talking. Consider the source. Sure, we're realtors. Everybody knows, how do we make our money? People move. We're not. That's not a secret. But we, Danielle and I, are realtors who actually care about people, care about our clients, care about the world. So we're never going to tell someone to do something that we think is a bad idea. What we want to do is have people not be afraid of the wrong thing. We want people to take into account all of the factors and help them understand, help educate, so that whatever decision you're making is an educated decision and the best decision for you, not based on fear, not based on the henny pennies who are running around saying the sky is falling. If the sky falls and you're in the right home, you're going to be fine. So we have a lot of people coming to us with a lot of fear. And that's what we talk about with one another every single day. And that's what we want to address here. Look at the right things, understand what the reality is. And there's still a ton that none of us can guess at. And we're always honest about that. But make your decisions based on the truth, not the myths.
Absolutely. All right. Well, until next Friday.
Yep.
Have a good one.
See ya.